Good morning and hello and good afternoon for those who have joined us today, and we are in our week 2 of the Sophos XG Firewall Academy. My name is Jade Evans and I'm the Event Marketing Manager here at Sophos and will be the host for today's webinar. Thank you for those who have joined us already. As of previous session, we can see that numbers are still increasing, so we'll be starting in the next 2 to 3 minutes. In the meantime, please get yourself comfortable, go and grab a drink, and we'll be kicking off in 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you. Hi to our new attendees who I can see has just joined us now live. My name's Jade Evans and I'll be the host for today's marketing webinar. Just to say that numbers are still increasing for the start of this webinar, so we'll just be holding off for 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll get going for today's webinar session. Hello again, and thank you for those who have joined us today for our 6th session out of our 9 technical educational webinars for the Sophos XG Firewall Academy. Before we start, I'd like to run over a couple of housekeeping points for those who may not have joined us live yet for the Academy series. You all will be on mute for the duration of the presentation. However, please feel free to post questions via the Q&A panel, which will be located on the right-hand side of your screen on your GoToWebinar area. Join us for today's session. We have our dedicated Sophos experts who will be there answering your questions throughout the duration of the presentation. Today's session, we are catching up on getting the most from XG, controlling and managing your environment. Just like previous sessions, we'll be also opening up a live Q&A, and today's host we have JS joining us back. And finally, just in case those who have missed on any of our previous sessions, all sessions we made on demand and even including this recorded session. We'll be posting all the recordings 24 hours after the webinars for you to be able to watch on demand and share with colleagues. If you're unable to access anything, please go to events.sophos.com/EMEA XG Firewall Academy and you'll be able to click all the remaining sessions. So without further ado, wishing all a nice and informative session. Enjoy, sit back, and don't forget to ask lots of questions. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to the session number 6 of the Sophos XG Academy for 2021. My name is Matt Smith and I'm part of the sales engineering team in Western North America, and today I'll be walking you through the topics of managing and controlling your XG environment. The topics we will cover in this session are as follows: the overall management console, which will introduce Sophos Central, how to get rich insight into your users and network with authentication and visibility. We'll look at controlling your environment with application and web control policies, including intrusion prevention, as well as a deep dive into Sophos Sandstorm for enhanced security. We'll finally look at what the XG can do to provide extra visibility with other Sophos products to automate the security, management, and visibility of your environment. So with that, let's get started. First off, let's talk about management. Sophos Central is our platform for managing all of your Sophos security products from one pane of glass. XG Firewall is now fully integrated into Sophos Central with great firewall management features, reporting, and of course, synchronized security to respond to threats automatically. Customers have told us that the combination of Sophos Central and synchronized security has been such a benefit to them, it's been like doubling the size of their IT team. Let's break this down to what's important about an IT security solution and what makes us good or better. First of all, it starts with a great firewall, which is the heart of the network and an enabler for everything else really. An XG Firewall offers a very compelling solution for customers. Then it's also important when someone's looking at a vendor solution, what breadth of products do they offer in addition to a firewall? What endpoint product do they have? Does it have EDR or MTR? Does it cover servers, mobile devices? And what about other products does it include? Obviously, we have a great portfolio for companies of all sizes. Perhaps the most important product in the portfolio is the endpoint solution. How strong is it? How does it compare? What about the protection, the features? These are super important criteria, and of course we have the best endpoint in the industry. Then the next most important aspect to a good security solution is the management. Is there a single console to manage everything? We have a unique advantage with Sophos Central. And then how well integrated are the various products? Is there any value added benefits that come from that integration? Again, synchronized security is really unmatched in this area. And finally, the customer is going to look closer at the value they are getting. Is the price reasonable? Do you get good value for your money? We offer excellent value, great price performance, great features, and lots of essentials we include for free that others charge for. So I think you'll agree the Sophos ecosystem is one of the key reasons that we win, and for other good reasons. An endpoint product that is second to none, a unique single cloud management console to effectively manage everything, tight integration with synchronized security, and a solution that delivers tremendous value to our customers. XG Firewall offers several winning advantages when it comes to management. It is part of the ultimate cybersecurity ecosystem that is Sophos Central and synchronized security, which offers tremendous benefits. One console to manage it all, one vendor, one console, all your IT security managed from one single pane of glass, and obviously synchronized security. You get the ultimate management experience, which includes group firewall management, which makes it very easy. Flexible cloud-based reporting and visibility across your entire network, wizard-based deployment and setup tools, security, malware, and threat intelligence analysts built in, pre-packaged policies to be up and running quickly, and automated response. Here you can see the Sophos Central dashboard. It has been designed with simplicity in mind, with an intuitive dashboard also using traffic light style indicators, allowing customers to easily navigate around, see a summary of their estate, or to drill down to more detailed logs and alerts, all from a single interface. XG Firewall can be managed from within Sophos Central for easy management, especially across multiple sites, reporting and deployment. You can monitor the health of all of your firewalls in Sophos Central. You can do one-click firmware updates, You can store and manage backup files. And now you can do group policy management within Sophos Central. Adding firewalls to groups keeps their global policy settings synchronized for the entire group automatically. If you make a change once, it's automatically replicated to all firewalls within that group. You can also view and audit changes via the task queue, and we've recently added high availability support, or HA, to Sophos Central so that you can now add HA pairs to groups and manage them similar to other devices in that group. So let's dig into the next topic of visibility, protection, and response. Another basic question most admins struggle to answer is who are their top riskiest users. With Sophos' synchronized user identification, you can tie a specific user to a specific device, as well as their behavior as to whether they are violating your company IT policies and how much of a risk they pose to your organization. XG Firewall has a number of authentication methods, including Active Directory, LDAP, eDirectory, and more, as well as local authentication for those deployments where an authentication service just does not exist. In addition, if you're running our Sophos Intercept X product on your endpoints and servers, you also have the added benefit of sharing the last logged on user information that is reported by the endpoint to the XG Firewall, which makes it even easier to gain visibility to your most riskiest users within your organization. XG Firewall automatically identifies the top risk users in the organization and provides insights right on the control center. And a couple of clicks provides a detailed report that articulates why they are the highest risk so that network admins can proactively address these risky users before HR comes asking for a detailed forensic report for that problematic user. The challenges with visibility are where we have invested heavily, helping customers finally get the level of visibility they want and need into what's happening on the network. It starts as soon as you log into the firewall with the control center you see here. It uses traffic light style indicators that immediately draw attention to what matters the most. Red needs immediate attention, yellow is a risk or warning, and green is good. At a glance, you can see your top risks related to the heartbeat, applications, payloads, users, threats, websites, and attacks. When it comes to configuring your policies, there is a very simple and intuitive way of implementing them. We pre-package policies that allow organizations to get up and running within minutes. Admins can choose from one of the many built-in policies for web filtering, intrusion prevention, application control, traffic shaping, SSL inspection, or business application protection, and then customize them or just use them as is. We are constantly integrating intelligence and best practices into the product to make it easier to protect your organization with just a few clicks. We will highlight web and application control, including intrusion prevention, in a demo very shortly. Another important control is web filtering. With the Sophos XG Firewall, it provides simple and intuitive interface to configure and deploy web protection policies. You can quickly deploy a pre-packaged built-in policy for your workplace or school environment, blocking a range of unwanted web traffic quickly and easily out of the box. The pre-packaged policies can also be modified to suit your specific needs. If pre-packaged policy meets the majority of your requirements, you can take a pre-packaged policy and simply add or remove your own URL block or allow lists, web categories, content, and so on. You can also tie these rules to specific individuals or departments within your organization, providing flexibility for IT admins. Specifically to a school environment, we offer teacher override options, keyword monitoring and reporting. The XG can enforce safe search as well as Google and YouTube restrictions. The XG also supports Chromebook and many other authentication options. You can easily troubleshoot your policies with the included policy tester to quickly determine if a website is blocked or allowed for a particular user and also make changes on the fly. Another important protection technology in any firewall is intrusion prevention. You can think of IPS as the network equivalent of exploit detection. It looks at network traffic for signs of exploits or any packet containing code that's part of an attack. It can detect exploits against vulnerabilities in operating systems, network stacks, servers, endpoints, browsers, applications, and more. It's no excuse for not patching, but acts as another layer of vulnerability protection. Our IPS engine is amongst the best in the industry according to NSS Labs, and we're constantly improving our IPS solution, and Sophos Labs plays a key role in that. We also offer network admins the ultimate in flexibility to fine-tune their performance and protection. Now let's take a look at how easy it is to administer and manage policies on the firewall. So as you can see, if we jump into the rules and policies and we create a new firewall rule, we can simply give the rule a name, log the firewall traffic. We can assign our source as well as our destination objects. We can also create new objects for both the source and destination networks on the fly. We also include a time schedule to enable these policies for a particular time that you want this particular rule to take effect as well. As I mentioned, so in this particular rule, we're going to just set up this up for a typical LAN to WAN rule. What we also include for the destination networks is to define like the country or the IP range, MAC address list, as well as any services. By tying in the user, we can then specify any particular individual users or groups as tying in that with the authentication services as well. We can simply add in the exclusions that may be exempt from these policies. And then as we scroll down, you can see that with the security features of the web policy, we have a predefined or a prepackaged policy in this example. So you can see this applies to anybody right now, as well as a select web categories that currently have a range of actions from allow, warn, or block. All of these web categories are visible for you to simply add or remove from this policy, including URL whitelist or blacklist from within the XG firewall. And obviously for your URL allow list, we're just going to go ahead and allow that. And as you can see, if there was a particular rule that we didn't like, we can disable that or just simply delete. And then as we just make sure and validate that we've got our policy configured as we like, we want to just set a warning on our gambling web category. And ultimately, as we continue scrolling down, we're just going to go ahead and save this web filtering policy. And that really is as simple as that. We do obviously want to enforce Sophos Sandstorm for additional security, which we'll cover very shortly. Selecting green for your security heartbeat ensures that any devices traversing this firewall, in particular the rule, are good and healthy, in addition to blocking any clients with no heartbeat. Moving on, we can also see and enable an application control policy. So if we wanted to block applications that are consuming high amounts of bandwidth, we can very easily do that directly on the firewall. Now, what you'll see is if we jump into the actual policy, we can edit this, and we're just going to go ahead and customize it and add in any of the applications that, as a network admin, I want to identify and control based upon a select criteria. So I want to make sure that anything that poses a risk from an medium, high, or very high. We can also add in certain characteristics, so we can tie in perhaps even a synchronized application control of what the endpoint has told the firewall, what applications are running on the endpoints. And once I've got that policy enabled, we can go ahead and just save that rule down at the bottom. So at this point, we've got our synchronized application control applications and everything defined as we expect. And as you can see, again, just to re-highlight the applications that the endpoint has shared with the firewall. Now, finally, we're just going to go ahead again and save that, and we have our application control policy now defined. Within the same firewall rule, we can also apply our intrusion prevention policy. So this also does provide a pre-packaged policy. So if you wanted to customize this policy, you can do by all means. So if you wanted to select certain targets, so if it was just client or server, including any particular supported platforms such as Windows, Linux, Unix, or even Mac, there's a whole range of IPS patterns specific for those platforms. The recommended action is already set for you as well. Just make sure that you have the action set to recommended. Go ahead and save that. And then we can layer in intrusion prevention directly into that firewall rule, and we'll go ahead and simply save it. Now, we cover the deep packet inspection engine in more depth in another session of this series, but note that one of the benefits of the DPI engine is the integration of all the security and control needed to protect the network and enforce policies. You have gateway antivirus scanning, IPS, web protection, and application control into a single streaming engine, making it efficient and effective in overall great performance. And what's more, if the AV engine detects any file with active code, such as an executable or document with a macro, it will send that file to Sophos Labs Cloud Services for a static machine learning based threat intelligence analysis and dynamic sandboxing behavioral analysis to stop the latest ransomware attacks and variants. And as with everything else we do, customers get unprecedented visibility into this analysis that other vendors just simply cannot match. But why is this technology so important? What kinds of threats does it stop? So here are 4 examples of recent threats that Sophos Labs shared with me that would not be stopped if a customer didn't have Sandstorm in version 18 of Sophos XG that would be analyzing these threats. First, infected Office documents are often attached to phishing or spam emails and even available for download on many sites, which can be easily convicted by static threat intelligence. Next, the Anuna hacking tool, which is a bank and financial institution hacker kit that is also easily, quickly, and reliably convicted by static threat intelligence. Then lately, we've seen a huge increase in coronavirus phishing attempts, many of them using a new attack consisting of an executable inside of a compressed file, like a .rar or .zip. Both static and dynamic analysis convicted this malware, and most importantly, Sophos Sandstorm customers were protected from day 0. And last but not least is another Excel-based malicious attack that uses a legacy code execution feature. This one is designed to be evasive of most AV engines. However, Sophos Sandstorm detected this variant and saw over 1,300 convictions in just 1 week. The bottom line is there are real and dangerous threats out there that are slipping onto networks unnecessarily because customers don't have the necessary protection. Sophos XG gives you quick insight from the control center. Clicking on the widget shows a list of recent files that have been analyzed, the file name, when it was analyzed, who downloaded it, and the final result of either suspicious, malicious, non-clean, or likely clean with high confidence. Files determined to be malicious are blocked and will not be allowed on the network. Other results are allowed and obviously flagged here for you to easily see. Simply mousing over the result in the summary screen reveals the new threat meter. Here we see an example of a malicious file that was convicted based on its file attributes, genetics, and overall machine learning analysis of the file that has determined with very high confidence that this is a new form of malware, and it has been blocked before Sandstorm sandboxing was even finished analyzing the file. That's one of the key benefits of the new threat intelligence analysis, is that it can render a verdict much quicker than sandboxing in seconds instead of minutes. A more thorough drill down report is provided that shows complete details on each of the threat modeling techniques used and their results. Those of you familiar with the threat intelligence analysis in our EDR product or our email product will find this very familiar. And with the new threat intelligence solution in XG Firewall version 18, Sandstorm reporting is also greatly expanded. We now provide extensive details on what the file was doing, along with screenshots as it happened in the sandbox, so you can easily and securely see the step-by-step action of the malicious file being detonated inside of the sandbox. Here is a demonstration of the amount of visibility you get with Sophos Sandstorm reporting. Starting at the top of the report, the source details allows you to quickly understand which of your users downloaded this file from which website and the exact time and date. The overall verdict in this case is malicious. The analysis summary provides a breakdown of the result from different perspectives, including machine learning, the file structure, and the overall reputation and more. You can see here that the Sophos Sandstorm detonation detects this file as malicious. Sandstorm provides a click-by-click replay of what the malicious file attempted to do inside of the sandbox. Here you can see what a user would have seen if they would have received this malicious Word document. From here, we can analyze the process, file, and registry activity to understand the behavior of the file. We also include how prominent this threat is on third-party virus databases like VirusTotal, so you have complete assurance that the file has been convicted as malicious. Now let's talk about synchronized security. Sophos was the first vendor to integrate firewall and endpoint together to enable them to share information and automatically respond to incidents. This was a disruptive innovation in the industry, as many other firewall vendors have been scrambling ever since to integrate endpoint protection into the product lines with varying degrees of success. No one can match the simplicity, elegance, and rich features that Sophos Synchronized Security delivers. All you need to make this work is XG Firewall and InterceptX, or our Managed Threat Response Service, and it's all managed by Sophos Central for free, and all of the protection and threat intelligence comes from Sophos Labs. Let's have a look at a few key synchronized features and use cases. So here we have the security heartbeat, and the security heartbeat shares a variety of telemetry between endpoint and firewall, which is one of the key pieces of information shared is its health status. If InterceptX detects a threat, it will automatically communicate that to the firewall, which will flag its heartbeat status as red. Then the firewall then automatically initiates lateral movement protection, which informs all the healthy endpoints on the network that there is a compromised host, and to ignore all traffic from that compromised host. This prevents any active threat from moving laterally to other systems on the network. In addition, dynamic firewall rules that depend on endpoint health automatically limit access for any compromised host to network resources such as servers, other LAN segments, and even the internet, completely isolating that host until it's cleaned up. This not only stops the attack from moving or spreading, but also prevents data from being stolen or exfiltrated. It also cuts off any communication between the compromised host and any hacker command and control servers. Now, another benefit of the Sophos security heartbeat between endpoints and the firewall is that it can be used to share a variety of other information, including information about unidentifiable applications. If the firewall sees application traffic on the network it cannot identify, it can simply ask the endpoint, which inherently knows the app generating every packet that leaves that device. The endpoint shares that application info with the firewall in real time. We call this synchronized application control, as it uses synchronized security to identify unknown applications. The application is then automatically classified in many cases, or flagged for the admin to classify, and then application can be controlled, blocked, or even accelerated if it is identified as traffic that is critical to your business. There's a widget right on the XG Firewall Control Center that shows you how many applications have been identified using synchronized application control. You see how many new applications have been discovered since you last investigated it, how many have been categorized by the system or yourself, and the total number of applications that were previously going unseen in your network. This is unique to Sophos and provides 100% application discovery and identification reliably and accurately. No other firewall does this. Let's take a look at synchronized application control at work. In this demonstration, we will highlight a common tactic used by willing users who will try to disguise the network activity by using a proxy or a VPN tool in hopes that the firewall will not be able to detect their traffic. So from the control center, we'll click on the synchronized application control, and from here we can see all of the applications detected by the Sophos endpoint agent that have been shared with the Sophos XG Firewall. So we've gone ahead and created a web policy that's going to block gambling as a web category. So if we select the web categories, we're just going to search for gambling, and we're going to apply that now to the web filtering policy. We've got it set to block, we're going to enable it, save our policy, and go to the firewall rule. Now, on the firewall rule, we're just going to tie in the web policy directly under that firewall rule to block our gambling web category. Now, with that saved, what we want to do now is just go to the applications, and we're going to add in an application filtering policy to block particular VPN applications. So we're just going to save this application filter, jump into our newly created policy, and now we're just going to simply select the criteria based on proxy or VPN traffic, deny all of our applications that the firewall currently knows about, and save that. Now, just again, back under our firewall rule, just going to make sure we've got everything set. And if we go to gambling.com, we can see that the website is expectedly blocked. Now, under that firewall rule, if we go back and we enable the block VPN application filter that we just created a few moments ago, save our firewall rule, and now if we establish a VPN tunnel through our VPN application, once we've connected, we're just going to go ahead and test and see if we can bypass the current firewall policies. So you can see we have our connection established now. We attempt to go to gambling.com. And of course, you can see we can access gambling.com. Now, with Sophos synchronized application control, what we're going to do is, because we've ran that application traffic now, the endpoint has communicated that application traffic with the XG firewall. So from here now, you can see our OpenVPN application, our curl.exe, as well as the actual path to where that application was running. We can see the user that was currently logged on, how often we've seen it, the last occurrence, and how many times that we've seen it so far. Now we're just going to go ahead and add it to our proxy and tunneling application category. And we'll do the same as well for OpenVPN as well. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. And then once that is saved, what we're going to do now is just disconnect and then re-establish our VPN connection. So we can see that the session has been terminated, we've logged out, and we're going to attempt to log back in again. Now, under our application filter, we can also identify that we have now got the curl.exe and openvpn.exe added to our application filter. And you notice now that the application is obviously struggling to establish a VPN session. If we take a look at the log viewer on Sophos XG Firewall, we can see the application filter for that particular user that is currently being denied. And that's exactly what we want and the benefit of the Sophos Synchronized application control. Now, what you can see is we can still try and we're still trying to keep connecting, but we know now, because we're blocking it from the application level directly by the synchronized application control, we can now see that the actual VPN client has been unable to successfully establish that VPN session, and it will reattempt to try and connect somewhere else as well. So that is really the value and the benefit of the Sophos XG synchronized application control, to not only get the visibility, but also manage that traffic to really tighten and enforce your security policies. So that concludes the session number 6 for controlling and managing your environment. I'd like to thank you for watching this session. Be sure to check out the next session, which is session 7, which covers topics on managing and accessing your XG firewall remotely.
Great, thank you everybody. We are now going to go over to live Q&A with Jayesh. Just a reminder for those, the Q&A panel is located on the right hand side. Jayesh, if I can kindly ask you to come on mute and your camera on, and then we can kickstart with today's questions.
Sure,
Perfect.
I'm ready.
So great, thank you. What's come in? How do I determine how much storage I need for a central firewall reporting?
Okay, so for central firewall reporting, if you want to know an estimate size that is required, so we actually have a sizing tool available for CFR, that is central firewall reporting. So once you go to sophos.com/CFR, it will redirect you to central reporting page. And if you navigate over here, estimate your storage needs, this will redirect you to the sizing tool, wherein you can get a good estimate of what's the required storage that you need to purchase in order to store the logs and reports. So for example, it shows various options like, is it a hardware XZ, is it a virtual, or even if it's for cloud, that is AWS or Azure. So as an example, I'll select hardware over here, and then it will show all the models that are available in XZ and SG platform. So for example, if I select 210 XZ210, and my requirement is I need to store the reports for 1 year. So if I select 1 year, this will show an estimate storage that is needed for that particular customer. So obviously this might vary from customer to customer scenario, because it is dependent on the traffic that is sent to the central for storing the reports. But this will give you a good estimate and the initial point where you can get an idea of how much storage is needed. So you can check out this page.
Great, thank you. How do I enable Sandstorm on my existing XG appliances?
Sandstorm, okay, no problem. So for that, first of all, you need to make sure that the whichever firewall rule is uh, used for the traffic, make sure that you enable the Sandstorm scanning over here. As in this example, I have already enabled 0-day threats with Sandstorm in this particular firewall rule. And once this is done, we navigate to advanced threat, Sandstorm scanning, Sandstorm settings, sorry. And then you can keep this default, let Sophos decide. So the data center where the file would be sent for analysis purpose, you can either set as let Sophos decide, or you can manually select the place which is closest to your location. And once this is done, you should be able to get the Sophos Sandstorm protection for the files that are malicious. So it would be sent for the scanning purpose.
Great. In the recording, it was obviously mentioned about our synchronized security. Someone asked, what do I need to get started with enabling synchronized security?
Yep, that's a good question. So first thing, you need to make sure that you have a central Sophos central account. So if you don't have one, you need to create an account and make sure that you have the account with you. And then the second step would be to register your Sophos XG Firewall with that Sophos central account. So this is how it would look like. Once it is registered, it will show that okay, the Sophos firewall is registered with Sophos central. And then you need to make sure that whichever endpoint or the computer is there in your network, it should also have the Sophos endpoint installed on that particular machine. And the catch is it should be downloaded from the same central account. So firewall as well as the endpoints should be registered in the same central account in order to make use of the synchronized security feature.
Is there a limit to how many applications can be identified with synchronized app control?
Yeah, so synchronized app control, currently the limit is approximately 10,000. So if you want to check that, it's available from the help section itself. Once I click on help, it will redirect me to this document. Yeah, so it should be mentioned somewhere here. Okay, actually, I was on a different page. Let me go back to Control Center. In whichever page we are and we click on help, it will open the relevant information on the documentation. So let me go to synchronized app control first. And then I should click on help, and they should show me the limit. Yeah, this is the one. So at the moment, synchronized application control supports up to 10,000 applications.
Great. Can isolation of compromised endpoints be managed on a per firewall rule basis?
Actually, you like, I'm assuming that the question is like, do you need a separate firewall for each endpoint in order to get them isolated? So the answer is no, because if we can have a unified firewall which will manage the isolation of all the endpoints. So for example, over here we can see the security heartbeat options that are available. So if I select minimum source heartbeat as green, that means any computer that is not having a green heartbeat, maybe it could be yellow or it could be red. So all those computers would be not allowed to access internet. So the short answer is a unified firewall can be used to manage the isolation or the action that needs to be taken on the endpoint traffic.
Thank you. Next one, am I able to run a packet capture of traffic for further analysis?
Yep, actually this was covered yesterday itself, if I remember that correctly. So we can go to the packet capture, and you can go to this particular section, configure, and use the same TCP dump syntax that are available over here, and capture the live traffic and see how the traffic is behaving when it is passing through XG Firewall.
Can I edit the available predefined web filtered policies to use within my organization, or do I have to start from scratch?
No, we can actually edit the predefined or inbuilt policies. There is no need to create a new one. Actually, the best way is to clone the existing policy. So if you see over here, there is a default workplace policy, which comes with every XG firewall. It's an inbuilt policy. So you have two options. Either you can clone this one and make the changes that you need in your organization, or else you can even edit the existing ones. So if I click on edit over here, it will show me the default options. And for example, I can click on add rule, and let's say I need to block proxy. So I'll select proxy. Okay, it's not available. Show web category. Let me search for VPN. Okay, it's not there either. For example, I need to block all the advertisements. So I'll select advertisements over here and get the action as block. Enable this, and finally click on save, so that this gets saved in the inbuilt policy. So now my inbuilt policy has a custom category that would be, I mean, a custom rule at the top, which will block the advertisements. So yes, the inbuilt policies can be modified.
Great, thank you. Next up, can firmware updates controlled via Central be deployed to high available systems as well?
Yep. So if we go to the firewall management, I'll show the option over here. I already have a XG firewall, which is integrated with my central account. So this is a XG firewall which is deployed on Azure, and as you can see, there is an option of firmware schedule or firmware update option, through which I can schedule the firmware update. There is a single firewall, but same is applicable for HA as well. So once we click on it, it will ask you when do you want to push it, either immediately or you want to schedule it at a particular time and date. So once you do that and click on schedule upgrade, it will push the firmware upgrade from central to your XG.
Thank you. Next question. Is there any particular advantage to doing web access restrictions in the XG versus intercept endpoint?
Actually, that depends on how your traffic is managed in your organization. So for example, there are some users who want the traffic to be passing always through the head office, like the traffic is always backhauled from the head office XG device. So in that case, you can configure the web restrictions on XG firewall, because all of the traffic is going to pass through XG no matter where they're sitting. They could be at home, they could be in their office. So if the traffic is always passing through XG, you can configure the web restrictions on XG device. But then if there are requirements like restrictions should be applicable only during only when the users are in their office and not at their home. So in that case, you can configure policies in such a way that it should be on XG. Actually, I messed it up, so apologies. So it's other way around. So if the restrictions are needed only on the corporate network, then you can configure on XG. But if it is required all the time, doesn't matter if it's if the user is sitting at home or is at corporate. If the web restrictions are required all the time, then that is where you can control through the endpoint.
Great, thank you. Someone's asked, I want to block users doing window updates during work hours. What are the steps to follow to enable that?
Yeah, it's very easy. So you just need to create a firewall rule. Let me show a sample over here. Yeah, so you will have a web filtering policy which will have the Windows updates configured over here, and then you need to select a schedule over here, which means, for example, 6 days a week. So Windows updates would be available only during this particular time. So this is how you can configure the updates based in a combination with the firewall rules as well as the schedule time.
Thank you. Someone's asked, can you kindly show me how to add a site to a category if it's uncategorized?
Can you repeat that question once again, please?
Sure. It says, can you show how to add a site to a category if it's uncategorized?
Oh, okay. Actually, you can create a custom category. For example, we go to categories, and let's say I give it a name, test1, for example. And then here I can enter the websites, for example, www.test1.com, and click on save. Oh, I need to press the add. Okay, so this is how we can create a custom category and then use it in the web policies.
Thank you. Question. If you're enabling monitoring of our endpoint health in firewall rules, how do you deal with the devices that cannot have the endpoint software installed, such as printers? Would you create a new firewall rule to deal with those devices?
Sorry, could you repeat that question once
Of
again? I'm
course,
trying
it was
to
it's a
understand.
bit of a long one. So if you're
Yeah.
enabling monitoring of the endpoint health in firewall rules, how do you deal with the devices that cannot have the endpoint software installed, such as printers? Would you need to create
Oh,
a new firewall rule?
actually, there are two options. You can either allow that particular printers on a different firewall rules that don't have any scanning at all, or else you can add an exclusion for those particular IP addresses. So there are two options. Whichever option is convenient for the user, they can use it.
Great, and I will just close off with a couple more, just seeing the time. Do you configure the XG firewall via Sophos Central Portal, or can you access the firewall GUI directly?
Yep, so you can access the XZ firewall as I'm accessing right now. This is the direct access from the URL. Alternatively, if you want to manage your XZ firewall from Sophos Central, it can be done from Central as well. So if you can see this screen, there's Azure XZ, which is already connected and live, and it is showing on my Sophos Central account as well. So if I click on this, it will transparently log me into the XZ firewall, and it will show the same web UI page which I was accessing earlier. So it might take a few seconds to connect. So once this is done, you will get the same experience that you get when you are trying to access the firewall locally. And this is how the URL would be changed. It would be fw-sso. So this is how it would look like when you SSO from Central to the XZ firewall. It again shows the same web UI interface, all the same options, and you can still configure and manage your XZ firewall from Central.
Thank you. The final few. When I group firewalls, do they have to be in the same Sophos Central?
Yes. So in the Central, let me show that option once the page gets loaded. Yep. So this is a single central account, and whichever firewall is integrated with this, or whichever firewall is registered in this account, it would be showed in the firewall management page. So you could either group those firewalls, or you can keep them in ungrouped stage as well. So it's up to the user. But the catch is, a single XZ firewall can only be a part of one Sophos Central account. So that's the reason we see only one email ID over here in the registration status.
Thank you. Can I scan networks with the advanced threat protection?
Yes, it can be possible. Once you go to advanced threat protection, and enable this option. It will show the option whether you want to just log the traffic or you want to log as well as take the action of drop. So whichever method the user wants, they can use it and use the advanced threat protection.
And I will close off with this question. Is there any impact on internet browsing or user experience when you do the Sandstorm option?
So Sandstorm scanning would be only applicable for the malicious file. For example, it could be a exe file that the user is trying to download, or any PDF or any Microsoft Office file. So the file which looks suspicious would be sent for scanning purpose. So your normal internet browsing shouldn't be affected by this.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jayesh, for dealing with all the live Q&As. Just a reminder, we have about 5 minutes left on the webinar, so please keep the questions coming through the panel. Jayesh will be going back to the Q&A panel along with our other SE experts who are trying to get through as many questions as they can. I'm just going to remind everybody just a few items remaining with the links. So for those who it's the first time joining us today, we are offering a free XG Architect certification for both end users and partners. To be able to receive that, you will have to attend 4 or more of these Academy sessions live. The training voucher will be emailed to all recipients who attend 4 or more live sessions within a week after the event takes place. And we are back in our final week next week, where we'll be kicking off with getting the most from XG, managing and accessing remotely. That will be taking place on Tuesday, the 9th of February at the same time of 10 to 11 GMT, Dublin, London time zone. Thank you for those who have kindly joined us today. As mentioned, we'll just stay on for the last few minutes of the session while we hit the hour. Again, as a reminder for those who may have missed at the beginning, you are able to access all webinar recordings, including today's session, within 24 hours after today. All previous sessions are already on the page, which you can find that at events.sophos.com/EMEA XG Firewall, XG Academy. And as you can see, there's just a print screen example. When you scroll down to the page, there's a green button that says Watch on Demand. So you can just click that, watch, and share with any colleagues who's also unable to join us today. Thank you so much for joining. I'll leave the Q&A questions open for the remaining few minutes of today's webinar. Thank you. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you once again for those who stayed with us to the end. As a reminder, the recording will be available within 24 hours on our event page. Wishing you a lovely week, and we look forward and welcome you back to our final week of the XG Firewall Academy, taking place on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you, stay safe and speak to you soon.